new car sales in South Africa rose 1.8% year-on-year in December to 46,000 units. Sydney Sandi, head of vehicle and asset finance at Standard Bank, joins us at the desk for more right now. Sydney, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Slightly encouraging numbers coming through there. A 1.8% year-on-year increase in the December figures that we saw come through. And for the year, we've seen 2012 sales up over 9%, 9.2%. What did you make of the year that was?
I think it was a good year. In the middle of the year, we thought that we'll end up with a double-digit number of 10, but 9.2 is still a very good number under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances, I mean, let's look at, first of all, some of the support factors that came into play, because certainly being highlighted is the fact that we have a low interest rate environment right now, and that acting as a very big driver.
That's a big driver. So if you look at the structure of our market, it's largely driven by the consumer market, the personal market, as well as passenger market. So that's largely where the volumes come from. And you can see even from the numbers that the passenger market was the one that drove those numbers. So low interest rates play a major part in terms of the ability of the consumer to afford repayments.
It's very interesting because having low interest rates on the one hand is one thing. On the other hand, we've got this in a context where you've got high consumer debt and disposable income levels that are persisting. So how's that affecting or impacting that lending environment?
It's a balance that we need to get. And if you look at what we are trying to do from a financial services perspective, the financial services industry looks at responsible lending. So whilst we have challenges of high disposable or rather high debt to disposable income, there's an ability from financial institutions to make sure that whoever gets into debt actually qualifies for that debt. So from a numbers point of view, that's the reason why we also think that the numbers could perhaps have been better had the high debt to disposable income not been at levels that it is. And indeed, from a consumer perspective, that we have close on 50% of consumers that have credit impaired records.
So how's that impacting lending levels right now? I mean, from the applications that hit your desk, how many actually get approved?
So I can't share specific numbers in terms of that, but the accounts that we do put on the book, we are comfortable that we've looked at responsible lending in the first instance, and secondly that it is a risk that we're willing to take as a financial institution. So if you look at the activities that have happened, particularly in the industry in terms of pricing of specific types of vehicles, particularly the low entry level fuel efficient vehicles, affordability for purchase of vehicles has been fairly good, and that's the reason that you find that despite all the factors that you've mentioned, there's still an opportunity to do business.
We've got the passenger vehicle market standing in contrast to the kind of activity we're seeing in the heavy consumer vehicle, medium consumer vehicle, and commercial rather, and your light commercial vehicles in particular. How telling is that of the state of the South African economy right now?
I think if you look at it, the commercial businesses look at replacement of vehicles on a scientific basis. So they're not largely driven by status like individuals would be. So these days, institutions look at whether the vehicle is up for replacement and at what level of productivity will it give, what type of fuel efficiency will they get. So there's a complex way in which they assess at the levels at which they need to replace vehicles. So the replacement of vehicles in the commercial side is much more driven by those factors than by any other factors.
Overall, what's your outlook, Sydney, for 2013, and what kind of figure are you putting on the table in terms of the kind of sales we're anticipating to see this year?
So early in the year, we've seen many industry players and analysts having a range of expectations for 2013. And it's largely because there are a number of factors that will impact on your assessments. We've seen people projecting from flat growth to up to 8% growth. My view is that we'll end up about 6%.
So definitely not double digits this year that you're looking forward to.
From our assessment, definitely not 6%. And that is largely because in your earlier conversations, for example, you had discussions on the expected growth of the economy. We don't see that being at higher levels. We see it remaining at levels of 3%. We also see that there will be sufficient levels, will be at sufficiently lower in terms of interest rates to aid activity. But at the same time, the issues that we've raised around debt to disposable income, we see that as holding back some of the potential for growth in the next year.
Absolutely. Well, Sydney, let's leave it there. Thanks so much for having joined us this afternoon. Sydney Soundy is, of course, Head of Vehicle and Asset Finance at Standard Bank.